So hello fellow Earthlings, this is Earthling 6455463728, and topic for today: would an inorganic robot have less rights than an organic one? I feel like they would, but intro to myself. I'm Earthling 6455463728, and I think I'm just an ordinary person, but I think I've done some unique things that set me apart. I've been to the Eiffel Tower, not at the very top, but that's kind of cool. I've been in the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I've been to Caracas, Venezuela, the Grand Canyon, Las Vegas, of course, because it's close. Seoul, South Korea, Tokyo, Japan. Basically some places that I thought I would never get to in my life. I'd like to go to Egypt, see the pyramids at some point, maybe Machu Picchu, places like that. I have an MBA, I have a computer science degree, I've done programming for about 20 years or so. I quit smoking after about 20 years, I think. And it was tough, but I haven't smoked a cigarette since. I've lost about 80 pounds, and I've kept it off. Not all in one go, I wish. But yeah, so that seems kind of interesting. That's why I think I'm kind of interesting a little bit. But I admit everybody else can be too. Anyway, on to the topic for today. I feel that just the idea of something being alive is a really big deal for us. I mean, I think there's Spot. There's a robot dog, if you want to call it that it's not Boston Dynamics. I think somebody else, it might be Boston Dynamics, that made this thing. And I think Tesla, they're using it, or SpaceX, they're using it, maybe, in order to look at the wreckage of when they do tests on rocket ships. And, I think some people might have a problem, like some of the videos that we've seen of robots being kicked over while they're being tested in order to demonstrate the capabilities of the robot. I guess it's actually a little bit disconcerting to watch. And as a matter of fact, people have made these parody videos where the robot rebels and starts taking vengeance back on the testers. So I think, having something like that be created is demonstrate the fact that we can see a kind of aliveness in those things that look like in some way that they're alive. But we can very easily see that we draw a very strong line in the sand, meaning that if that thing looked like a Cocker Spaniel or any dog, those people would be cancelled. We would not have anything like that allowed. I mean, I think some YouTuber, she may have shouted at and pushed her dog down, and she got it. I don't think she beat up the dog. She didn't, maybe not kicked it, but certainly not in the way that they did with the robots that we saw. But, she had people calling on the animal care authorities to take away her dog from her. Now, the capabilities of a dog are, of course, far and beyond and above the capabilities of the robot, but we're not talking about that really. We're talking about whether or not an organic robot of the same intelligence of an inorganic one that has a motherboard and cameras and capacitors and inductors and chips, is that if we had two of those things standing next to each other, would the inorganic one have less rights than the organic one? And I think just by virtue of having skin, or by having fur, or having a heart, no matter how rudimentary or basic Or even if this particular organic robot were very deterministic, meaning that everything that it did was completely predictable. You press this, bone or something on its side, and it would every single time roll over and do this thing or do that thing or do whatever. And you press a button on the inorganic robot and it did exactly the same thing. They were exactly the same robot, but one, was living. You could maybe feed it, and the other one you had to plug it in or change its batteries. We would probably rush to make sure that there were rights that the quote-unquote living robot had that the inorganic one didn't. And I mean, and of course this is slightly different in terms of the potential, but if you look at a fetus can't do anything. There are people out there who would like to make it that that you can't even use contraceptives, that you can't even prevent a fetus from being conceived. People would like to control other people's bodies so that they can't even do that. And this doesn't really catch on or pass on to other animals. We don't really care quite so much with respect to aborting a dog, if people actually do that, or cats or cows or anything like that. So there are distinct lines that separate us, and we believe that we're better than animals, forgetting that we are just an animal. But to me, I think that there are slight problems with if we were to successfully create a inorganic robot that in many ways had the intelligence of a dog, let's say, or a cat, or anywhere between that and a human being. There would be a lot of problems, I think, in not making sure that that entity had rights. And the reason that I say that is we know that serial killers, supposedly, they start to, there's a stereotype that they start down their path of being a serial killer based on hurting small animals, killing small animals. And if it's an easy thing for someone to get a robot that in many ways is as intelligent as an animal, and we still allow people to do whatever they want to it, throw it away, bash it over the head, the problem is not in the fact that that robot, that its rights might be being, stepped on. The problem is in creating that habit of disregarding the intelligence or the intelligent-like behavior of this entity. Would we be able, or would serial killers, could they be formed off of creating the habit of maltreating something that seemed somewhat sentient? I mean, right now, we protect animals for the sake of the animals, not for the sake of not creating humans that are more callous. For some reason, we can't look that far ahead and realize that that really is the reason why we would want to give animals rights. We just look at the sorrowful face, we hear the animal make noises of pain. If it's a puppy, we look at that face and we're like, oh my God, How could they do that bad thing to a living creature? This dog, this horse, this... Well, apparently we don't mind too much about cows and chickens. Well, we mind enough to not want to see them get killed, but we don't mind that they live in these horrible conditions, most of us anyway. But I think that it's something that we might need to change for the sake of society. I don't think that we will. I think that if we go down that path, we'll do pretty much what we've always done, which is ignore flagrant problems until they've passed the point of where they have already been having a very harmful effect on society. For example, racism, for example, sexism, etc., and so on. But I think that it is a lot easier for us to end up having this harmful effect if the robots that we eventually have as a commonplace thing are inorganic rather than organic. And as an aside, I already recorded this thing, but for whatever reason, completely lost it. And I just wanted to say something that I would have said before in a much longer way. I think that organics are the way to go. Clearly, seeing eye dogs are so amazing that even in spite of the difficulty and expense in reproducing them, we still have them. People who are fortunate enough can still have a seeing eye dog. We use dogs to detect illicit drugs at airports. We use dogs to find truffles. We use them to save people in collapsed buildings. And even though reproducing them, like I said, is so expensive and so difficult, such a lengthy process, and it's almost completely unscalable, we still try to do it because it's so valuable. And yet, we find it almost impossible to reproduce similar skills in inorganic robots, even devices. Is there a phone app or phone that you can use yet that can find a truffle, that can detect somebody buried underneath rubble, that can search for somebody in the wilderness by this sense of smell? No, not really. I can't really think of us using animals in any other way except for food. Dogs, I guess, are really very useful. But I think that the path forward, the eventual path forward, is in organics. But we're not. It's so hard. It's such a difficult problem that we're probably going to pursue artificial intelligence for a long time. But even organic artificial intelligence, that would be a thing because it would be artificial. But yeah, that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this, because ultimately we need to go into organic programming. I don't know how it would be done, but that's something that we need to do. So anyway, I'll stop here and hope that this actually recorded this time. So feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, and in the same way that you would want somebody else to do that if this were your piece. Have a good one. Peace.